You have felt it, the disproportionate rage at a minor slight, the contempt for a specific type of man you cannot fully explain. The behavior you swore you would never repeat, repeated anyway, as if something else took the controls. That is not weakness. That is the Minotaur. The part of you that was never integrated, only buried. And what was never integrated does not disappear. It accumulates force. It operates without your consent until you make the descent deliberate. The shadow is not a metaphor. It is a biological and psychological machine. Today we take it apart. Most men believe the chaos inside them is a flaw, a crack in the foundation, proof they are somehow incomplete. They medicate it, distract it, apologize for it. They call it anxiety. They call it rage. They call it depression. But that is a coping mechanism, a story constructed to avoid a harder truth. The darkness inside you is not a malfunction. It is a mechanism, a system as ancient as the Greek labyrinth, as precise as a biological clock. The beast has a name, a structure, and a set of rules governing its behavior. Today, we take that machine apart. The ancient Greeks called it the Minotaur, half man, half bull, imprisoned in a labyrinth beneath the palace of Crete. Every 9 years, the king sent 14 young lives into the dark. Not one returned. Scholars have debated the myth for centuries, filing it under folklore, ritual, and political allegory. But Carl Jung read it differently. He called the labyrinth the unconscious mind. He called the Minotaur the shadow, the accumulated sum of everything a man has rejected about himself. Everything he was told to bury, compress, and deny. This is the first concept, the labyrinth of the self. Jung defined the shadow not as evil, but as unintegrated energy. The traits a man disowns in childhood: rage, ambition, envy, lust for power, do not disappear when denied. They descend. They take up residence in the deeper architecture of the unconscious and begin operating without the man's knowledge or consent. Psychology calls this projection. You perceive your own buried material in the behavior of other men, and you despise them for it with an intensity that has no rational origin. The mechanism is exact and merciless. Every man you cannot tolerate is a mirror. Every flaw you find unforgivable in others is the precise shape of what you have refused to face in yourself. The Pareto principle operates even here. 80% of your external conflict is generated by 20% of internal material, cycling outward on a loop, because it has nowhere else to go. The average man calls his monster someone else's name. The strategist turns the lamp around and reads the face on the wall. But naming the beast and entering its domain are entirely different acts, which forces the second question: why do most men never descend at all? The answer lives in what the Greeks called hubris, the pride of the man who believes he is already complete. Modern psychology has a clinical term for this condition: identity foreclosure. This is the second concept, the sealed gate. Identity foreclosure describes a man who arrests his own development before development is finished, who adopts a fixed self, concept not because it is accurate, but because examining it further carries too great a cost. He chooses a role: provider, stoic, performer, competitor. He inhabits that role with such totality that the role becomes a prison he mistakes for a palace. The Minotaur does not disappear behind the sealed gate. It grows, confined, unfed, unacknowledged. The shadow accumulates force proportional to the years of suppression. This is documented neuroscience. Emotionally suppressed material does not dissolve over time. It activates the amygdala at progressively higher frequencies until the pressure finds an exit. The exit is rarely chosen. It arrives as a collapse, an affair, an explosion, a health event that dismantles in weeks what the man spent decades constructing. Theseus did not fear the labyrinth. He requested entry. He understood that a sealed door is not protection. It is compounding death. The average man builds walls around what he will not see. The emperor builds a door. A door, however, requires a thread. And the Greeks understood this with the precision of engineers, which leads to the third concept, Ariadne's thread. Ariadne gave Theseus a spool of thread before he entered the labyrinth, not a weapon. not armor, not a map, a thread, something thin enough to carry through the dark, strong enough to follow back. Jung called this the process of active imagination, a structured method of engaging the unconscious through deliberate dialogue, rather than reactive behavior or passive dreaming. The concrete mechanism is as follows. Each morning before you open a screen or speak to another person, write 3 sentences. Name one emotion you have been avoiding this week. Name one person toward whom you feel disproportionate resentment. Name one behavior in yourself that you would condemn without hesitation in another man. This is not therapy. This is intelligence gathering. You are mapping the architecture of the labyrinth so that when you descend, and you will descend, one way or another, you do not wander in circles. You follow the thread. Neuroscience confirms what Jung intuited 7 decades ago. Expressive writing about avoided emotional material reduces measurable amygdala reactivity within 2 weeks of daily practice. The biology is not poetic. It is mechanical and replicable. The average man hopes his darkness dissolves on its own schedule. The warrior draws a map before the battle. A map without the willingness to move, however, is paper. Which brings us to the 4th concept, the killing blow. Theseus did not simply locate the Minotaur. He killed it. And this is precisely where most interpretations of the myth stop, and where most men stop with them. They find the beast, they name it, they recognize the pattern operating in their life, and then they do not act. Aristotle called this acrasia, the failure of will in the presence of clear knowledge. You know what must change. The knowing is not the doing. The philosophical solution is not motivation, which fluctuates. It is architecture, the design of conditions that make inaction structurally more costly than action. Stoic philosophers called this the premeditation of adversity, the deliberate rehearsal of worst-case outcomes until the emotional charge of the outcome dissipates and clear action becomes mechanically available. The practice is specific. Take the single behavior or pattern you have been avoiding confronting in yourself and write its full trajectory. Not as it exists today, as it ends 5 years forward, with no intervention. Make the consequence concrete. Make it dated. Make it named. When abstraction becomes architecture, the will engages automatically. The brain's anterior cingulate cortex responds to specific futures with measurable urgency. Vague intentions produce no comparable response. The average man confronts his worst self only after it has already extracted the full cost. The predator faces it by appointment before the damage compounds. Killing the Minotaur, however, does not conclude the story, and this is the truth the myth refuses to simplify. The 5th concept is the return. Theseus forgot to change his sails. His father, watching from the cliff for the white sail of victory, saw black fabric against the sky and jumped. The hero who descended into the dark faced the beast and won, destroyed what he loved most through a single moment of unconscious carelessness on the return. Jung spent the final decades of his career writing about precisely this. He called it individuation, not a destination a man arrives at, but a lifelong discipline of integrating what each descent reveals. The error men make after genuine confrontation with their shadow is mistaking the encounter for the conclusion, but the material integrated in one descent exposes a deeper layer beneath it. This is psychological compounding. Each integration cycle opens access to more complex material that was not visible at the previous level. The man who does not understand this declares himself healed, stops descending, and constructs a new identity around the victory. Then the next crisis arrives, larger than the first, because the material beneath the material was never addressed. The mechanism demands continuity. There is no final version. There is only the quality and consistency of your willingness to keep returning to the labyrinth. Not because you are broken, but because the beast grows proportionally as you grow. A larger man contains a larger shadow. The average man descends once and names it courage. The philosopher treats the descent as a permanent discipline, with no graduation ceremony. Drop the comfortable story that the darkness inside you is a malfunction waiting for the right conditions to disappear. Define it precisely. It is ancient, it is structural, And it is waiting below everything you have built. Adopt the thread 3 sentences each morning. Mapping the terrain before you need to navigate it under pressure. Build the architecture of confrontation before crisis forces it. Start the descent on your own terms, not on the Minotaur's schedule in the hour of its choosing. Refuse the lie that awareness is the same as action. Understanding the mechanism changes nothing. Moving through it changes everything. The labyrinth is real. The thread is yours. Descend.